So these are just a few things we've been doing on the layout as well, with some scenery and finally trying to work with some structures. Um, but first, I ran across this. This showed up in one of my feeds on Facebook the other day, one of the model railroading feeds. And I thought it was a pretty neat description and illustration of various types of roofs and how they're put together so that you can use some general construction prototype procedures, which when you're getting structures judged, trying to have the roof follow prototype where it can is helpful in getting those scratch building points or detail points, either one. But I thought it was a good illustration of the various types from gable to butterfly. I hadn't even really ever thought about a butterfly roof. I'd never heard of that. But anyway, this may show up in the flyer uh, later on. But anyway, so two things. One is,
Pardon if I let me just interrupt you. If you want to see a butterfly roof, go to Mesa Verde, the Farview Lodge.
yeah,
Those are butterfly roofs.
yeah.
They're also on a lot of the train platforms across the nation.
Well, I had seen some models or plastic Walthers kinds of things of, various structures, generic structures with similar kinds of things. But anyway, there we are. So we've been working, Ray and I, Charlotte have been working in the mining district. We finally decided on which mine goes into this particular area. Uh, and I've been mounting it. I finally decided to put the cables on it. And if you look back through those doors, there's a bit of an interior. And I had a linear casting of some barrels, probably about half an inch or narrower and about 2 inches long. Instead of putting it up against a wall like you might think uh, to do it, I wanted to cover more of the doorway, so I just put it at a like a 30-degree or 40-degree angle back there. So it's touching the wall on the left, but if you see the whole of it, if I took a picture more directly in, you would see it running across, that there's something back there the whole way across. And so I thought that was kind of fun. Um, so where you, besides sculpt mold, Charlotte and I have found a new product we got off of Boomer Diorama, his YouTube video, and it's called Fast Mache. It's by the same people who make sculpt mold, but it's a much finer product, and it smooths much more easily than the sculpt mold itself. So we're using both, but particularly around where we want smoother roads or places where we're mounting buildings. And Ray was working with this last week, and we mixed up a bag of it, and we kept it going for what, 3 hours, because we went to lunch and back. Uh, and it was still very workable and very usable. So we used it in several areas, but it's kind of an interesting product, and you can get it online from the same people who make sculpt mold. But anyway, so this is Wild West Scale Models Flak Mine, and that's just another angle of it at this point in time in the mining district. And then the other thing that Charlotte and I have been working on is trying to begin to mount some structures in the Ophir Loop as we come from the backdrop forward. And this is the Mrs. Skillens, uh, our version of it, uh, and which is not entirely in focus, but some days are like that. So we put that in, and it's on some gator board. We've got some cast resin rocks in there. We took a little bit to level it out. There's a light in this, and the cord comes out underneath the building, but behind where it overhangs the scenery, so you can't see it. And the cord for the light bulb just then drops right straight through the floor of the scenery there. The more recent thing we did was put in the rock wall. That's a Chooch casting that's now been taken over, I think, by Walthers. I think they're the ones who now have it, and it's sort of a latex rubbery kind of structure, and it's obviously cuttable with scissors, so you can contour it and mold it in. It's supposed to have its own adhesive on the back, and several places where we've tried things, it's not worked all that well. So we used latex caulk to get it in place and just pinned it in. And I was pleased at how it came out. Charlotte also then used the fast mache to build the road up from the Oilton Club, which is the base of which you could just see on the right end of the picture. There next to the green shed is where it will go, so that it's more realistic contour for the road to the garage that's on the right-hand side of Mrs. Skillins. That's what that brownish building is at this point in time. But I was really pleased how it came out and how it looked at the scenery. And there's just another view. That's stacked foam board underneath it, and Charlotte and I roughed up the edges and then painted it a dark brown under there. In the prototype, there are some support poles that go, wood support pillars that go under there yet. So those aren't in, but you can see how the road and the garage have come on that. Unfortunately, you know, like all wooden things over time, there's just a little bit of contour change to the platform that's on. That's all those, both buildings are sitting on a single platform and at the right height. Fortunately, just below Ray's height, we could see light coming through underneath from the back. So we ended up trying, and we'll see how this does in the longer run, some gaffer's tape, which is used in the motion picture studios and stuff for lights and handling and so forth. And we put a strip just hanging down from the back foundation of the along the length of the platform there, and it took care of the light issue completely, just as is, as you can see in the photograph. So that's that. And then this last piece, this is the Oilton Club goes in the area on the upper left. The general merchandise is what goes up against this wall in the lower right. And then the road into Ophir, which has been revised a little bit since we took this even. On the backdrop on the far right, there is a bit of the road painted on the backdrop. And to make it come out, we created sort of a hill right center above the wall there, so that the road, when we get it graveled, will come like it's overcoming a little bit of a crest of a hill and then drops down to track level and on into the parking area at Ophir itself. So that's kind of where we are with that. So I really like this fast mache, and I don't know, Ray, do you have any thoughts from working with it the other day?
Yeah, it's easy to work with. It has a long working time, as Martin said. It's much smoother than Sculpt-A-Mold, and it wasn't very wet what we used, and so it held its shape well, and it kept it, and it would smooth. So I was pretty pleased with it. I don't know what the cost would be, but you know, I've used a lot of Sculpt-A-Mold here and in my previous layouts, and it makes a nice coarse surface for the wilderness or the country or a hillside. And here we were using it do you have a photograph of what we did, Martin? Or go back to it if you have the road leading up to that mine you showed, what Charlotte had done. Looks like it's
Oh,
really,
yeah. Well, I
really
don't have
good
one
food.
right. I don't have one right to hand. Let me see if how it shows on the. Let me go back here then.
It's really good for a less coarse surface. It's like a road, perhaps, or a parking lot. Whereas Sculpt-A-Mold is so coarse. So I mean, I would think you'd want both in your both materials in your arsenal.
Yeah, and I don't think it costs any significantly different than sculpt mold, a bag of sculpt mold.
Yeah, here, look at the dark surfaces. That is the road leading up to this mine. That is the what Charlotte used with this fast mache, and it's beautiful. It really is a nice material for that kind of thing.
Yeah. And the thing I like to, or at least when Boomer Diorama was demonstrating this on YouTube, you can actually shape and carve rock uh, and build it up, and just with a little spatula create rock outcroppings and so forth with it, if you will. As so anyway, it's an interesting product.